Now in this video, I'm going to overlay a scientific paradigm for reading horoscopes. This is known as the systems approach to Vedic astrology. This was developed by Professor V.K. Chowdhury, who also worked with his son, K. Rajesh Chowdhury. Together they co-authored 16 books on systems approach. They're all on systems approach, but different categories, such as systems approach in profession, or systems approach in health, or marriage, or children, or the transits, or the 12 rising signs. And they went on to train over 800 Vedic astrologers worldwide in this systems approach. It's a very unique paradigm based on empirical studies on thousands of charts over a 30-year period of time. Professor Chowdhury would eliminate any technique that was not replicable or contemporary. The classical books, such as the Charak Samhita and Brihat Purashara Horashastra, these were developed during Sat Yuga, very pure time in history, thousands of years ago. And in the Charak Samhita on Ayurveda, it says that doctors of the future will have to update according to society, according to what is going on in the world. Same thing with Vedic astrology. So Professor Chowdhury updated systems approach for modern times. So I won't get into a whole educational course on that right here, but I want to mention that this is a very specific paradigm. If you see any of our 800 Vedic astrologers practicing systems approach, you will get very similar reading, because these are not based on personal preference, intuition, or a hodgepodge of techniques. So I encourage people to set aside other information. And if anyone has an interest in learning systems approach, I have a ton of study materials, free study materials I can send to you, and some websites I can direct you to. Now, systems approach is very much connected with the degrees of the planets. These are not arbitrary numbers. 0 to 30 is possible in every house. The rising sign degree changes every 4 minutes of the day. It's very specific to the exact time of birth. Such an important number. We call this most effective point of every house, and any planet close to this number within a 5-degree orb. So it would go up to 6 degrees, and it would go back to 26 degrees. There's no line in the zodiac. This is just for representation, but the point is we go by the area, 5 degrees on either side. This number is so important, we call it the most effective point. Any planet close to that number will have an impact in the house it occupies and in the houses it aspects. So we see right off the beginning here that Rahu is at 1 degree and the ascendant is 1 degree. And Ketu is 1 degree. So it's very important to be aware that this is not ideal. This can cause a lot of trouble for a person, because Rahu and Ketu throw aspects 5, 7, and 9 houses from where they sit. So technically, Kamala has a Rahu-Ketu impact in 6 of her 12 houses, including the first house of self, third house self-initiatives, fifth house of children, seventh house of marriage, ninth house of father, 11th house income, friendships, and older siblings. So it's possible that the Ketu influence in the 11th house denied her of older siblings. Now, it does not matter what we find in the chart. Nobody has a perfect chart. We all have some issues. Everybody. No matter how healthy, how wealthy, how educated somebody is, sooner or later trouble comes to everyone. So the beautiful thing about systems approach is we also offer twofold planetary remedial measures. We recommend that our clients strengthen their favorable planets, and we have 3 ways to strengthen planets. But we have to pacify or honor or propitiate planets that cause adverse effects. Now, Sage Parashara is considered the father of Jyotisha, of Vedic astrology, and in the ancient classical 2-volume books in Sanskrit called the Brihat Parashara, Horashastra. Sage Parashara, Hora is our, Shastra is knowledge. So Sage Parashara says technically he says worship, but you can substitute honor, pacify, propitiate planets that cause adverse effects at any time. I love that at any time. That just suggests that things happen according to the hands of the clock, which we will get to. Because Brahma has blessed the planets with a boon, with the instruction, do good to those who worship you or honor you. And that's the key. When we honor the planets, then they are not allowed to cause more harm. My experience over the last 30 years is when people do these twofold planetary remedial measures for their horoscopes, they have much smoother sailing in life. When this Sanita Karma, the horoscope is called a reflection of your Sanchita Karma that you're working out this lifetime. For most people, when it manifests, it can be quite overwhelming. Karma can be 80, 90, 100% overwhelming, like a tsunami. But when we do the twofold planetary remedial measures, then the karma is much more manageable. Problems are more likely 30%, 20%, 10%. So which do you want, a 10% problem or 90% problem? Now, we cannot get rid of that last 10% of problems because that is the nature of life since the beginning of time, challenges. In the beginning, we had no food, no clothing, no shelter, no protection. And it's like that even today, where whether you're a plant, an animal, or a human being, the nature of life is challenges. That's why Lord Buddha says, first noble truth is life is suffering, dukkha. But the good news is that all challenges in life are a conveyor belt of evolution. They're here to wake us up to our divine self. And for most people who ignore that, then suffering will become their guru. They will learn the hard way. Now, what I'm getting at is that Rahu and Ketu have very difficult position in this chart in terms of they are afflicting 6 of her 12 houses. So without the remedies, then sooner or later trouble is going to come to her. There can be a total eclipse of her. Now, one of the remedies, I believe, is people who are on a spiritual path will have some additional protection. So I think that her deep faith that she has will be helpful to her. I also want to point out that she has 3 other planets that are close to 4 other planets that are close to the rising sign degree. Technically Mars is too, because if you go back, if the most effective point starts at 26 degrees, and so that would include 27 and 28. That's where Mars is. So these other planets, see, Sun is within the 5-degree orb. It's less than 6. Saturn is within the 5-degree orb, less than 6. Moon is within the 5-degree orb, less than 6. Jupiter is within the 5-degree orb, It's only a degree off of most affecting point. So that does activate these favorable planets for her. So for example, Jupiter then will have an impact in the 4th house. Jupiter's education, and it's connected with foreign lands, and it's influencing the 5 houses away. This is the house of parents. So she has parents connected with foreign lands, connected with education in her house of home life. And Jupiter influences 7 houses away. This is the house of law and medicine, so she chose law. And Jupiter aspects 9 houses away. So Jupiter's law, connected with foreign lands or long distant places from her birth, and the 8th house is marital bond, and her husband's an attorney. Sun is on the most effective point, so it blesses the 11th house. It aspects 7 houses away. All planets cast an aspect opposite where they sit. Some planets have additional aspects. Jupiter aspects 5, 7, and 9 houses away. Saturn aspects 3, 7, and 10 houses away. And Mars aspects 4, 7, and 8 houses away. So Sun's influence on this 11th house, 7 houses away, gives her income through Sun significations. That includes the government, large organizations, spiritual organizations, through higher education. Moon blesses the 5th house of children and education. She started out with public education. Moon rules the 2nd house of wealth and status and family life. It's all connected with education. So her family has wealth and status through higher education. And the 4th aspect of Mars is in the house of education. The 7th aspect of Mars is in the 8th house of marital bond, and the 8th aspect of Mars is in the 9th house. That gives good fortune and income to her. So that's good news that we have some support from these favorable planets. I do recommend that she does the remedies for her chart, absolutely. Because there can be some serious consequences if she's not aware of this and does not do the planetary remedies. Let me give another illustration on the importance of being aware of Rahu and Ketu close to a person's rising sign degree. Let's take a look at the chart of John F. Kennedy Jr., who had the 5th sign Leo ascending or rising at 18 degrees, and he had Rahu in the 1st house at 18 degrees. So hopefully most of you know who John F. Kennedy Jr. was, the son of the President John Kennedy. And if you knew of him, you knew that he was very charismatic, very ambitious, very persuasive. But Rahu can also make a person a risk taker, and it could cause some sudden eclipse. So he was flying an airplane in weather conditions that he was not qualified to fly in, and crashed the plane. Rahu throws an aspect 5 houses away. That's the house of children. He had no children. It aspects that 7 houses away. This is marriage and relationships. So his wife was killed in the same plane crash along with her sister. And Rahu's 9th aspect into the 9th house, his father was assassinated. That's how potent this is. And this Rahu at 18 degrees is afflicting this Venus at 18 degrees. Again, that's his wife, and that's his sister-in-law, and that's his sister. His sister lost her brother. Moon, which is mother, is in the house afflicted by Rahu and Ketu. His mother lost her husband and lost her son. Ketu's ninth aspect on Mercury, ruling the second house, caused discontinuation of family life. So my point is, we really need to manage Rahu and Ketu. This is a massive, massive insight into what Rahu Ketu can do if we're not aware of them and we don't manage them. See, Rahu was also afflicting the house where Jupiter, he had no children, Venus, wife, and Saturn. Saturn rules marriage and relationships. So there's trouble. And this house of father, under the influence of Rahu, is ruled by Mars, under the influence of Ketu. So this is why I'm very concerned about the chart for Kamala. So, there's nothing more powerful than right action in the present moment. And if she continues with her right action and continues on a spiritual or even religious path, that's fine. But I would, if she was my client, I'd be giving her remedies, very specific prescription of things that she can do to have much more manageable karma. We don't want to have 80, 90, 100% problems here. So I'm not going to go into all the remedies right now for her chart. But I would definitely pacify Rahu and Ketu. It's the only problem she has, Rahu and Ketu, but it's a very serious problem. So Rahu's fifth aspect down here, so she had none of her own children. She has stepchildren. Rahu's seventh aspect was in the house of relationships, partnerships, joint ventures, marriage, of nothing else that delayed marriage. Rahu's ninth aspect into the ninth house caused some eclipse relative to her father. So there was a divorce when she was only 7. And I said before that Rahu is connected with foreign lands and foreign cultures, foreign religions, and its aspect in the ninth house of father. Ketu's influence in the 11th house of older siblings denies older siblings. I do think with Rahu Ketu axis on the first house that she has a tendency to go high and low. Rahu is material life, Ketu is spiritual life. This is desires, this is non-desires. This is I want, this is I don't want. So she's always had, I think, ups and downs, ups and downs. Now, Ketu's ninth aspect into the third house could give her younger sister tremendous spiritual experiences. But she has to do the remedy so that her younger sister does not have a problem. So we definitely have to pacify Rahu and Ketu. For planets that cause adverse effects, we do what is known as Bhuta Yagya, B-H-O-O-T-A, Yagya, Y-A-G-Y-A. It's connected with charities for others on particular days of the week. And we also do Deva Yagya, D-E-V-A, which are the Vedic chants on particular days of the week. If people are not comfortable with the Vedic chants, they can do morning prayers or whatever spiritual chants work for their own religion, their own tradition. They're all helpful. So we do need to strengthen her favorable planets. Gemini, by the way, is the only rising sign with 7 favorable planets that will never cause harm. Sun rules the third house of mental development, self-expression, communications, will never cause harm. It rules father figures, the government, authority figures. Moon will never cause harm. It rules mother figures, grandmother and aunt. It rules her house of wealth and status. Mars will never cause harm. There's no Kuja dosha here. There's no Manglik dosha. Mars rules the 11th house of income and friendships. Mars is in its debilitation sign, so she would need a red coral gemstone to strengthen that Mars. Ruby gemstone would be good for Sun because Sun is in a house under the influence of Rahu and Sun is in its debilitation sign. Now, it is my experience sometimes when people have a debilitated Sun, they kind of puff themselves up a bit because Sun is the ego. Bill Gates has this. See, royal planet in the house of investments for Bill Gates as well. So ruby gemstone would be good for stomach, digestion, heart, blood, bones, immune system. Mercury's favorable. It rules childhood, parents, property. But see, Mercury's in a house under the eclipse of Rahu, so her parents didn't stay together. Guru, Jupiter will never cause harm. It rules the house of relationships, partnerships, joint ventures, marriage, education. So she would need the yellow sapphire gemstone to strengthen that Jupiter. Otherwise, there's trouble with liver, gallbladder, and hips as well. Shukra, Venus will never cause harm. Venus rules her house of mind and education. Women who are like sisters. But Venus is in the house under the influence of Ketu, so that would be a diamond gemstone. And Saturn. Saturn will never cause harm. In my opinion, Saturn is the most powerful planet in her chart. Even though it's in a house under the influence of Rahu, planets in strong degrees in their own Multricone sign retain power. Now, if Rahu was at 5 degrees, it would be afflicting this Saturn, or at 4 degrees, or at 3 degrees, or at 2 degrees, but it's at 1 degree, so we've got some space here. So Saturn is carrying her chart, and it's her house of Dharma, and it's leading the masses, being of service to humanity. But we could wear a blue sapphire gemstone to strengthen Saturn as well. The pearl would be good for her wealth and status and family life. And of course, all the planets are connected with different body parts. Chest, lungs, fluids in the body, thyroid, menstrual cycle, muscular parts of the body, kidneys, pancreas, reproductive organs, stomach, digestion, heart, blood, bones, immune system, respiratory canal, nervous system, physical structure, all these things. So we just strengthen the favorable planets with color therapy, gemstone therapy, and my favorite remedy for any chart and every chart for the last 26 years is a silver yantra, a mystical pendant known as a kavach or kavacham. These are handmade in India. They are engraved with the mystical numbers representing your favorable planets, therefore representing your favorable gemstones. So one mystical pendant for Kamala would be like wearing 7 gemstones. Again, Gemini is the only rising sign with 7 favorable planets. Other rising signs may have 6 favorable planets, 5 favorable planets, or 4 favorable planets. It's all connected with the position of the Multricone signs, which take precedence in systems approach. The Multricone signs are 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 11. Aries for Mars, Cancer for the Moon, Leo for the Sun, Virgo for the Mercury, Libra for the Venus, Sagittarius for Jupiter, and Aquarius for Saturn. Of these 12 houses, only 9 houses are actually favorable houses. 3 houses are Dustan Babas, inauspicious houses. Planets going into the 6th house, the 8th house, and 12th house become weak, and planets ruling the 6th, 8th, and 12th can cause adverse effects if that house contains a Multracone sign. So Geminis have no Multracone signs in the 6th, 8th, and 12th. This is why they don't have to worry about planets becoming functional malefic planets. People are working things out this lifetime according to the Multracone sign positions. Professor Chowdhury said nobody ever came to see him over a 30-year period of time about a non-Multracone sign issue. This is a big key in Vedic astrology that most amateur astrologers are not aware of. So all Geminis are working out relative to income and friendships, according to wealth and status in life, according to independence and self-initiatives, according to property, happiness, home life, children and education, relationships, partnerships, joint ventures, religion, guru, and father figures. It's very simple. So we do the twofold remedy. We strengthen the favorable planets that are weak, afflicted, debilitated, or badly placed. And we pacify or honor or propitiate planets that cause adverse effects. So she needs to pacify Rahu and Ketu. For Rahu, we would say, do charities for afflicted persons. For Gemini, this can be done on Mondays from time to time. It could be once a year or once a month or once a week. And the Shiva chants would be very good to pacify Rahu, to propitiate Rahu on Mondays. For Ketu, we donate to animal shelters for stray dogs on Thursdays. We help holy persons on Thursdays, or religious persons or organizations on Thursdays. And the Ganesh chants on Thursdays would be good. For Geminis, the Ishta Devata, I-S-H-T-A, D-E-V-A-T-A, personal deity is goddess Lakshmi. So Lakshmi pujas or chants on Fridays. So this is the chart for Kamala Harris. I hope this reading is helpful. I will most likely do another video on the timing of events and some discussion on the election as well. I'll do that separately. I wish you and your families all the best in health, happiness, peace, and prosperity. Om Namah Shivaya.